Performance stands out like a ton of diamonds. Non-performance can always be explained away by Harold S. Jennings. So good day. My name is Moolien Jane A. Estimada and I am reporting about performance appraisal. So what are our learning objectives? Of course, the learner will identify and use appropriate performance appraisal tools for measuring professional nursing performance, identify factors that increase the likelihood that a performance appraisal will develop and motivate staff, provide feedback regarding peer performance in a constructive and assertive manner, avoid the halo effect, horns effect, and central tendency errors in conducting performance appraisals, recognize subjectivity as an ever-present limitation of the performance appraisal process, describe coaching techniques that promote employee growth in work performance, gather data for performance appraisals in a systematic manner that is fair and objective, develop an awareness of biases that influence a person's ability to complete a fair and objective performance appraisal, differentiate between performance appraisal tools, and identify what conditions should be present before, during, and after the performance appraisal that increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. So what is performance appraisal? Performance appraisal is a process of evaluating performance of an employee. It compares an individual's job performance against standard or objective developed for the individual's position. And of course, it is an important managerial controlling responsibility in determining how well employees carry out the duties of their assigned jobs. And this performance appraisal is the systematic evaluation of the performance of employees and to understand the abilities of a person for further growth and development. So sometimes it is used for basis of training, seminars, or continuous improvement. And performance appraisals let employees know the level of their job performance as well as any expectations from the organization that may have of them. Of course, in employment, we have different job descriptions, we have different expectation from the organization. So performance appraisals is used, and performance appraisal also generate information for salary adjustments, promotions, transfers, disciplinary actions, and termination. So dito din binabasa yung ating mga bonuses and ating mga salary adjustments and promotions. And sometimes if we are not doing well, dito din binabase ang ating mga disciplinary actions and terminations. So what are the leadership roles and management functions associated with performance appraisal? So for leadership roles, it uses the appraisal process to motivate employees and promote growth, uses appropriate techniques to reduce the anxiety inherent in the appraisal process. So performance appraisal becomes one of the greatest tools an organization has to develop and motivate staff. So when it is used correctly, it can encourage staff and increase retention and productivity. However, if it is used by an inexperienced manager, then appraisal process may significantly discourage and demotivate workers. So involves employees in all aspects of performance appraisal. So it is very important to involve the employees, to let them engage and let them know about their performance, and aware of own biases and prejudices so as to eliminate their influence in the performance appraisal process, and develops employee trust by being honest and fair when evaluating performance. So additional leadership roles, it encourages the peer review process among professional staff. It uses appraisal interviews to facilitate two-way communication. And it provides ongoing support to employees who are attempting to correct performance deficiencies. Of course, hindi lang lahat positive. So nakikita din sa performance appraisal yung mga negative or yung mga strengths and weaknesses ng ating mga employees. So it is used to support the employees for their performance deficiencies. So leaders also uses coaching techniques that promote employee growth in work performance and individualizes performance goals in the appraisal interview as needed to meet the unique needs of a culturally diverse staff. So what are the management functions? It uses a formalized system of performance appraisal. So the skilled leader manager who uses a formalized system for the appraisal is better able to build a team approach to patient care. It gathers fair and objective data throughout the evaluation period to use in employees' performance appraisal. So of course, in evaluating the employee, we should be fair and objective. And it uses the appraisal process to determine staff education and training needs. So dito din binabase yung ating continuous improvement and ating mga training needs. So bases performance appraisal on documented standards. So dapat documented din yung ating mga standards. Hindi lang, we are not basing it through our memory, diba? Sometimes yung mga nag-evaluate, hindi na nila sinusulat. So it should be documented. And as objective as possible in performance management, or managers should be objective as possible in performance appraisal. So managers also maintains appropriate documentation of the appraisal process. It follows up on identified performance deficiencies. So hindi lang siya on that day ng evaluation. So dapat merong follow up. So, para nakikita kung merong improvement or merong kailangan pang i-enhance sa mga performance ng ating employees. It conducts the appraisal interview in a manner that promotes a positive outcome and provides frequent informal feedback on work performance. So, what are the factors that influencing effective performance appraisal? First, appraisal should be based on standard. So, employee must believe that the appraisal is based on a standard to which other employees in the same classification are held accountable. So, dapat pantay-pantay lahat. And this standard must be communicated clearly to employees at the time they are hired, and may be a job description or individual goals set by staff for the purpose of performance appraisal. So, the appraisal tool must adequately and accurately assess job performance. So, for example, meron tayong tool which has vague criteria such as dignity, quality, compassion, di ba? Ang hirap niyang i-measure. So, dapat accurate yung ating assessment. So, we could use different appraisal tools that will be discussed later. So, employees should have input into development of the standard. Employee must know the standard in advance. So, they must also know what happens if the expected performance are not met. So, employee must know the sources of data gathered for appraisal. So, dapat alam din nila kung saan nanggagaling yung mga data or yung information ng ating performance appraisal para naman sources are credible and accurate. And sources could include peers, co-workers, nursing care plans, patients, and personal observation by the manager or the leader. And employees should be told which sources will be used and how such information will be weighted. An appraiser should be someone who has observed the employee's work. So, it should be one of the employees' direct supervisors and managers. For example, a charge nurse who works directly with the staff nurse, or should be involved in the appraisal process and interview. And it is advisable that most instances for the head nurse and supervisor also to be involved, and employees must believe that the person doing the major portion of the review has actually observed their work. Kasi 'di ba, ang pangit naman kung yung nag-evaluate sa ating employees, hindi niya talaga kilala yung kanyang employee. So, appraiser should be someone who the employee trusts and respects. So, what are the strategies to ensure performance appraisal accuracy? Develop self-awareness regarding own biases and prejudices. So this helps to guard against subjective attitudes and values influencing the appraisal. So the appraiser must always recognize, though, that all employees' reviews involve some subjectivity. We need to stop pretending that our ways of evaluating employee performance are objective, kasi hindi naman talaga naiiwasan yung mga subjective na mga evaluation. So use appropriate consultation, gather data adequately over time. So, consultation should be sought frequently because there are some instances that the employees work several shifts. So, and yung mga staff nurses natin, yung employees are having their duty with different managers and different supervisors. So, we have to consult another manager when a question about personal bias exists and in many other situations. So, even experienced managers may need to consult with others when an employee is having great difficulty fulfilling the duties of their job, and of course, consultation when they complete their first performance appraisals. And keep accurate anecdotal records for the length of the appraisal period. So, information about subordinate performance, both positive and negative, should be recorded and not trusted to memory. Kasi merong instances na if hindi mo siya isusulat, magkabaliktad yung mga evaluations mo sa iba't ibang staff. Then, collect positive data and identify areas where improvement is needed. So, hindi lang positive data, but also yung mga areas na kailangan ng improvement or yung mga strengths and weaknesses ng ating employees. We should collect them all. So, include employees' own appraisal of his or her performance. So, employees can be instructed to come to the appraisal interview with some informal thoughts about their performance. So, kaya meron tayong mga informal interview with the employees para naman marinig natin yung kanilang side kung bakit ganito or bakit ganyan ang kanilang performance sa kanilang job or sa kanilang work. So, guards against the halo effect, horns effect, central tendency trap, and Matthew effect. So, when we say halo effect, it is when the appraiser lets one or two positive aspects of the assessment or behavior of the employee unduly influence all other aspects of the employee's performance. So, meron tayong mga favoritism or yung mga sip-sip. So, di ba? It can affect their performance appraisal. Meron din namang horns effect. So, ito yung mga negative aspects of the employee's performance to influence the assessment to such an extent that other level of job performance are not accurately recorded. So, kung hindi mo feel yung employee or nagkamali lang yung employee tapos ibagsak mo na siya, hindi mo na i-credit yung ibang performance niya or positive outcome ng kanyang job. So, that is horns effect. And central tendency trap, it occurs when the manager is hesitant to risk through assessment and therefore rates all employees as average. And of course, the Matthew effect, it occurs when employees receive the same appraisal results every year or year after year. So, those who perform well early in their employment are likely to do well, and those who struggled will continue to struggle. So, Matthew effect is compared with the adage, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So, it is very important that when there are strengths, it can be improved, or the weaknesses can be improved and enhanced. What are the different performance appraisal tools? First is the trait rating scale. It is a method of rating a person against a set standard, so which may be the job description, desired behaviors, or personal traits. Next is the job dimension scales. It is a rating scale can be constructed for each job classification. So rates the performance on job requirements, and the rating factors are taken from the context of the written job descriptions. Although job dimension scales share some of the same weaknesses of trait scales, they do focus on job requirements rather than on ambiguous terms such as quantity of work. next is the behaviorally anchored rating scales, or the bars. So sometimes it is called behavioral expectation scales. So the bars technique requires that a separate rating form be developed for each job classification. Then, as in the job dimension, rating scales, employees in specific positions work with management to delineate key areas of responsibility. However, in bars, many specific examples are defined for each area of responsibility. These examples are given various degrees of importance by ranking them 1 to 9. If the highest rank example of job dimension is being met, it is less important than a lower rank example is not. So next is the checklist. So there are several types of checklist appraisal tools. The weighted scale, which is most frequently used checklist, it is composed of many behavioral statements that represent desirable job behaviors. Each of these behavior statement has a weighted score attached to it. So employees receive an overall performance appraisal score based on behaviors or attributes. Another type of checklist is the forced checklist. It requires the supervisor to select an undesirable and desirable behavior for each employee. So both desirable and undesirable behaviors have quantitative values, and the employee again ends up with a total score on which certain employment decisions are made. And another type of checklist is the simple checklist. So it comprises numerous words or phrases describing various employees' behaviors or traits. And these descriptors are often clustered to represent different aspects of one dimension of behavior, such as assertiveness or interpersonal skills. So next is the essay. So a narrative appraisal of job performance. It is often referred to as the free form review. So the appraiser describes in narrative form an employee's strength and areas where improvement or growth is needed. So there is also self-appraisal, wherein an appraisal of performance, or it is an appraisal of performance by the employee. So employees are increasingly being asked to submit written summaries or portfolios of their work-related accomplishment and productivity. And also management by objectives, or the MBO. So employee and management agree upon goals of performance to be reached. So it is an excellent tool for determining an individual's employee's progress because it incorporates both the employee's assessment and the organization. So sometimes ginagawa ito na mag-rate ang employee sa kanyang sarili, and then also the supervisor, and they will meet and agree on the principal duties and responsibilities of the employee's job. And of course, there is also peer review. Assessment of work performance carried out by peers. So when the supervisors, or when peers rather than supervisors, carry out monitoring and assessing work performance, it is referred to as peer review. So the manager's review of the employee is not complete unless some type of peer review data is gathered. So peer review provides feedback that can promote growth, and it also provides learning opportunities for the peer reviewers. And also, the 360-degree evaluation. So it is an adaptation of peer review and a relatively new addition to performance appraisal tools, and it includes an assessment by all individuals within the sphere of influence of the individual being appraised. So what is performance management? So some experts in human resource management have suggested that annual performance appraisal should be replaced by ongoing performance management, because in performance management, appraisals are eliminated and the manager places his or her efforts into ongoing coaching, mutual goal setting, and leadership training of subordinates. And this focus requires the manager to spend more regularly scheduled face-to-face time with subordinates. So in contrast with the annual performance review, which is often linked to the employee's hire date, the performance management calendar is generally linked to the organization's business calendar. So this way, Performance planning is coordinated throughout the entire organization, and strategic goals for the year can be identified, and subordinates' roles to achieve those goals can be openly discussed and planned. So regardless of all performance managed organization, identify role-based competency expectations for every employee regardless of job description. Then, employees can determine how these qualities translate into performance in specific jobs. So that's all for performance appraisal. Thank you very much.